Today, we're honored to share the story of Inez Cook, a proud Nuxalk Nation entrepreneur and founder of Salmon and Bannock. A survivor of the 60s Scoop, Inez has reclaimed her heritage through food, storytelling, and community, turning resilience into a living legacy. I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. Hey everyone, welcome back to Stream of Consciousness with Dan. I have an amazing individual here today with an incredible story that I can't wait for you to hear. Inez Cook. How are you doing this afternoon?
Hi, I'm doing well, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing well, like we talked about before. I'm just trying to stay warm. It's pretty cold here, but so you have an incredible story. I think I'm not exactly sure the exact age that you were scooped up per se on the 60s scoop, but you were adopted by a white family at what age? And can you just kind of talk about where you were born and kind of your childhood experience?
Sure, absolutely. So, yes, like you mentioned, I am part of the Sixties Scoop. I was taken away from Bella Coola, which is in British Columbia, at age 1, and then I was adopted out to white people. A lot of people have heard of the residential schools, and what a lot of people have not heard about is the 60s Scoop. So, basically, when those kids grew up after leaving the residential schools and they started having children, the government said, oh no, now these dirty Indians are making babies. Quick, take them away and adopt them out to white people, assimilate. So that's kind of what happened. And I'm part of that group. And there's over 20,000 of us um, on record. That was part of a class action lawsuit against the government. And it's interesting. I talk about how most people haven't heard about it. I'm actually part of it, and I didn't know about it until I was an adult as well, as there was no education on it as well.
No, absolutely. Like I said, I had never heard of it either. It's a pretty, excuse me, filthy act, to be quite frank. But could you talk about your adoptive parents and kind of what they meant to you, but also kind of having a void, in your soul and in your heart feeling different?
Well, originally I was in a foster home, and I stayed in this foster family for 2 years, and then they tried to adopt me. And the government said they were too old and they wouldn't permit them to adopt me. So their daughter adopted me. So I had already become part of the family for 2 years, and it was an amazing family, and I was really blessed. I'm definitely one of the blessed ones that grew up in an amazing family filled with love. And my adopted dad was a social worker at the time. And, my parents, once I started learning about the 60 Scoop and then I'm part of it and kind of more of my history, of course, they felt so terrible because they just adopted a girl that they understood needed to be
Mhm.
adopted. They didn't,
Right.
they weren't part of the master plan and they didn't understand any of that either. So, of course, there's some guilt, you know,
Yeah.
coming along their way as well, feeling horrible, thinking like, how did we participate in this? But I don't. I don't. I understand. I understand it was a different time, and I understand what happened now as an adult. And um, I grew up mostly in Vancouver, and then we got stationed. My dad got stationed up in Northwest Territories when I was in grade 2, and
Oh, wow.
I
Okay.
knew. Yeah, I knew that I was Native, but I didn't really know what that meant. And
Mhm.
when we got to Northwest Territories, I saw scary drunk people in the ditch. And I asked my parents who these people were. And they looked so scary. Their faces were weathered and And they said they're natives. And then I looked at my parents and I said, I'm not native. And that was that. It was the N word. Nobody was allowed to call me that again until much, much later. And so I grew up running away from who I was and not wanting to be proud of who I was. And, you know, sometimes forgetting that I was different, but then I'd see family photos and I was always the darker one.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so I don't know, like I felt like there was this, as I was getting older, I felt like I was yearning for culture, like dying for culture.
Hmm.
And I felt like there was no culture around me at all. And it's just interesting how it just felt like this huge void in my life for so many years. And I actually even studied some Spanish to fool people because my name is Inez. So mi nombre es Inez worked really well. And
Oh, gotcha.
I thought I could lie a little bit, but then I got caught in my lie. So then that faded pretty quick.
Oh, oh, well, it's funny, but it's also it's super hard for me to even empathize with you. I can sympathize, but I cannot empathize with, what you went through. And yeah, just having that void in your heart and feeling, I guess, odd. I don't know if that's a good word to describe it or just different. But how do you feel like that experience, maybe hardened you or shaped the person you are today?
Well, when I was in grade 7, there was a on a Friday, everybody got to bring in like a potluck to the class, and there was a little class party. And I made my favorite brownies for my aunt's recipe, and they were so delicious. And somebody in the class ate them. Oh my God, these brownies are delicious. Who made them? And someone said Inez did. And somebody else got up and took the whole pan and threw them in the garbage and said
Oh,
we don't eat packy food. And
what does Packy mean?
so at that time there was a Sikh temple that had just been built into the neighborhood, and so a lot of South Asians from India, Punjabis, moved in to the area, and I guess a lot of the families were scared and ignorant, and they obviously got that terminology from their parents, so they
Oh, I gotcha. Okay.
they were referring to the Indians, even though Paki means Pakistani, but they that was just the derogatory term. And, I don't remember how I got home that day. I was sobbing and, in convulsions, crying. And my mom sat me down and she said, you need to be proud of who you are. And first of all, you're not they're so ridiculous. She said you're not Indian from India, and they're talking about Pakistanians, not even like the Indians that are in the neighborhood. Like they're just being absolutely ridiculous. And she said, "What if they called you Swedish? Like it doesn't matter. Like what?" And I tried to think about it in my head, and I tried to understand why it bothered me that they said Paki, and if they would have called me Swedish, would I have been crying? And I couldn't figure it out of my head. It didn't make any sense.
Mhm.
But she went to the school, and the next day we had an emergency assembly on racism at the school. So yeah, it was just hard to understand and hard to be different and look different. And now growing up, it's so funny. If I see any kids that I went to school with and I see their family names, I go, "Oh my goodness, they were Greek or they were Italian or they were this." I had no idea about
Mhm.
different cultures. I was pretty ignorant, I guess, but
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say you were ignorant. You just didn't know, and you were already put into a hard situation to start. So, you were already
yeah.
kind of behind the eight ball, if you will. But I think, again, I think that kind of shapes your story. And I kind of want to segue into kind of past your school years and how you got into the airline industry, because I think you were in the airline industry for almost 3 decades.
Yeah. So my studies was radio broadcasting, And I found that the mountains were stagnating and I wanted to jump higher. And so I ended up first moving to Toronto. And I thought I would work for Much Music, but I didn't have enough experience. And Toronto was so expensive at the time when I moved there. I ended up deciding to move to Montreal to study French. And I thought that would help break down the competition barrier. And then I could come back home and work for CBC or something like that. That was kind of the original plan. So I moved to Montreal and I studied French. And then I saw a tiny little ad saying flight attendants urgently needed. And I went, oh my God, I want to meet the world. I want to meet culture. I'm dying for
Mhm.
culture.
Right.
I want to be a flight attendant. That's what I want to do. I don't want to work in as a journalist. I want to work in aviation. So I started my flying career in Montreal, and a year and a half after the company that I started working with went bankrupt, and then I got a contract overseas with a European company, and I was based in Saudi Arabia, Africa, India, England, all over. And then I moved back home in '97 to Vancouver, and I got Air Canada Vancouver base. And I completed a 25-year career with Air Canada and 33 years in the aviation industry in total. And so um, the one thing that I noticed while I was living all over the world and meeting the world was that food brings everybody together. And it
Absolutely.
doesn't, yeah, it doesn't matter what culture you're from, food brings everybody together. And when I travel and have gone to so many countries, I like to eat with the locals. I like to have what they're having. I like to try it. When I go to France, don't take me to a restaurant with an English menu. I think
Mhm.
it's really important and it adds so much to the experiences is just having what locals have. And
Well, no, go
mhm.
ahead.
Yeah, I think it creates memories. And so well, I got married and my husband was from Tunisia. And then we talked about opening up a Tunisian restaurant. So I learned how to make wicked Tunisian dishes and then we got divorced. So then I'm like, I have no business opening up a Tunisian restaurant. What the heck? And so I went to Kelowna, which is about 4 hours away from Vancouver by car, and it's wine country. So I went to wine country. One of my best friends lives there, and I went to go cry in a bottle of wine over my divorce and to spend time with my BFF.
Right.
And she's driving me back to the airport, and I see a huge sign, and it says, "Don't panic, we have Bannock." I said, "Oh my God, stop the car." She's like, "What is it?" I said, "It's an Indigenous restaurant." I said, "I can't believe there's one in Kelowna and we don't have one in Vancouver anymore. We'd had one years ago, but for several years we didn't have any." And so I went and I brought some of the bannock home and I talked to one of my dear friends in Vancouver and I said, "Can you believe it? There's an Indigenous restaurant in Kelowna. We don't have one anymore in Vancouver. And the Olympics are coming. The whole world is coming. Can you imagine? Like when I travel, I want to have food from the land. These people are going to want to have food from the land. We should open up an Indigenous restaurant." He's like, "Oh my God, I'll work day and night. Let's make it happen." So, it's a great idea. Bad timing. I'm going through divorce. I don't have any money. Like, no, no, no. And then, like, a short while later, like maybe a month later, this lady that we knew called me out of the blue and said, "Hey, I don't know if you know anybody in your network, but I have an empty restaurant that I had it subletted out, but now they've bailed and I need somebody to take it over. And the Olympics are coming, City Hall shut down. I just need somebody to sublet it from me if you know of anyone." And I felt like I was kicked in the stomach and I said, "I have an idea." And like literally it was just a whirlwind. And about a month and a half later, we opened up Salmon and Bannock Bistro, February 15th, 2010. And my friend Remy and I, we opened it together and we tag teamed. We both flew full time. And so I would fly, uh, I think I flew Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then I'd be there for Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and vice versa. That's what we did for years. And then, at the beginning, nobody came. Nobody was
Oh,
allowed to stop
yep.
on Broadway.
Oh, geez.
And nobody was allowed to stop on Broadway. And one thing, there's a couple of things actually. In Vancouver, it's a very, very foodie city. That's one thing.
It's super
And
diverse. It's super diverse. I've never been there, but I've watched quite a few cooking shows, and it's a pretty cultural melting pot.
it really is like it's a foodie heaven for sure. And um the one thing is that if anyone opens up a restaurant, you'll know, where they came from before. You'll know what restaurant they worked at before. One of your friends would have worked with them in the past, or maybe they trained under this one chef that you know of, or it's kind of cliquey as well. Like not only it's a foodie
Mhm.
city, but it's cliquey. So nobody in the culinary world knew me because I was in aviation. I wasn't in the culinary
Right.
world. And I'd lived abroad for so many years. Like really, I was like this alien. But the other thing is that I'm Indigenous and I have an Indigenous restaurant, but the Indigenous community didn't know me because I'm adopted.
Right. Yeah. It was, yeah, you were stuck between a rock and a hard place, honestly.
Yeah, I had a lot to prove, basically. And, I didn't understand. I did not understand at the beginning what it all kind of meant and how I needed to kind of navigate it, I guess. But there was media attention that this Indigenous restaurant opened and that it was a New Hulk owner. And the New Hulk community thought that maybe I chose a nation just far enough away that nobody would ask questions.
Mhm.
And I don't know if you've seen on the news recently, there's been a lot of pretendians. So there's a lot of people that are not Indigenous that are taking away Indigenous jobs and grants and awards and things that don't
Oh,
belong to them.
no,
And
I have
so,
not heard that, but that's no, I'll definitely have to research that because that's uh pretty messed up.
yeah, like Buffy St. Marie was the big one. That was huge. And if you Google that, she's a well known singer and she was like an Indigenous icon. And we all found out she's Italian.
Well, we can. I'm definitely going to get into some other things later in the podcast, but I kind of want to talk about kind of just the food and like the menu, the ingredients you use, and just for someone who's not really familiar with indigenous cuisine, excuse me, kind of
Yeah.
just what that means.
Yeah. So we're a modern Indigenous bistro. So this February will be our 16th year. My friend did leave the business about 8 years ago, so I've been running it solo. And about 3 years ago, I opened up my second location, which is at the airport at International Departures. And that's the first Indigenous restaurant and airport in North America. So that's pretty cool.
Oh, that's
All my
really cool.
Yeah, all my fish is wild, and all my meat is free range organic game meats. And my Broadway team in the city is an all Indigenous team. And my team at the airport at the international departures is an international team, so they can explain who we are and what we do in several languages. So that's cool. Bannock is our bread. So I came up with the name Salmon and Bannock because I thought, okay, salmon because we're on the coast, and somebody that doesn't know necessarily salmon, I don't know what it was called. It was salmon and something, and then we would pop up, and then the Indigenous folks will see the word Bannock and they'll go, "Hey, that's our space." Amazing.
Hmm.
And so that's how I came up with the name. And my slogan is hashtag We Got Game.
I
And
love it.
so if people are like, "Oh, I don't know, I don't feel like having salmon today," that's okay. Hashtag We Got Game. So there's
That
something on
is,
the
I
menu for
love that
everyone.
so much. Oh, that is so I just wanted to also talk about, so I'm actually writing a cookbook
Awesome.
right now, and I would love if you could maybe share one of your favorite recipes that I could feature in my cookbook, if that's okay. because I think
Might
that
have to
would be
kill you
really
then.
powerful. Okay, maybe not. But no, so it's actually pretty neat. I think you'd like it. I can kind of send you what I've been working on. It's so I have it's called Salted Words and Broken Bread, and it's just recipes from all across the world. So I have rooms from, North America, South America, Europe, Africa, the Pacific. So I would love to feature one of your recipes unless it murders me. But I just think it kind of like you said with your Tunisian story, like just food brings people together. It's so powerful. Everyone can bond over food. It doesn't matter if you're an indigenous person, doesn't matter if you're white, doesn't matter if you're black. Food brings people together. So
$100%.
I just wanted to plug that real quick. So,
Oh, pardon the interruption, folks, but this episode is brought to you by Big Mama's Kitchen, located in the heart of Omaha, Nebraska. Every dish tells a story. From oven fried chicken to sweet potato pie, it's soul food that feels like home. And just in time for the holidays, Big Mama's Kitchen is offering their Heat and Eat holiday special, all the flavors of tradition, ready to share with family. Plus, you'll save big. Get $10 off for every $50 purchase when using the promo code HOLIDAY 2025. That's HOLIDAY 2025. Big Mama's Kitchen, taste the legacy, share the love.
all right, so you've got your restaurant. Are there any
And I retired from my career 3 years ago to open up my second restaurant. So yeah.
Well, you're clearly in a good spot, and congratulations on that new restaurant. That is, I'm sure, incredibly powerful, and that it's just really neat. Do you have any maybe organizations or foundations that you work with that support you, or that people can look into to kind of spread your word?
I mean, I'm involved in lots of different things. I'm on the board for Indigenous Tours in British Columbia, and they do a lot of really amazing work. Um, so a cool thing is that in Canada we have over 600 nations, and in British Columbia alone there's over 200 of those 600 nations. So it's
Oh,
really
wow.
densely populated with so many different cultures, and so that's really cool. So if people are coming into British Columbia and Vancouver, I really recommend them checking out Indigenous Tourism BC. And if they're visiting Canada, there's Indigenous Tourism Association of Canada, and they can see different Indigenous restaurants, culinary offerings, as well as different tours and experiences that they can try around the country. I think that's something that's really cool. Um, I do a lot of mentoring. I work with some youth. I work with other people in culinary. I kind of have my hands in lots of different things, and I like to keep busy. And I like you asked me a question earlier, and one thing I didn't really answer it, and it's because I think when I was younger, I wish there was Indigenous role models that I looked up to that I would feel proud
Mm.
of. And so now I'm really trying to be part of that space.
Well, I think you're doing a great job. But like I said, all the research I've done, you've done incredible work. It's just super powerful. I'm going to tell a quick story on my experience with some Indigenous people here in my area in Omaha, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Um, so I worked for the United Way of the Midlands, which is a nonprofit organization here in Omaha, and they have an organization called JAG, which is Jobs for America's Graduates. So it kind of takes students who are not necessarily
have, learning disabilities, but they maybe just, need a little push forward or just need a little more help or may not have the best family environment. And they do a competition every year where they do presentations. And uh, I was a judge at this competition. Okay, yeah, missing and murdered Indigenous women. Are you familiar with that?
Yes, of course.
Okay, yeah. So there were two students, maybe 16 years old, and they did a presentation on that, and they were in their traditional um, tribal
Regalia.
attire. Yeah, and they had the red hand on their face. And I'm just thinking to myself, these are 16-year-olds talking about this crisis that I, again, had never heard of. I don't know if I'm just ignorant, but and it truly touched me so much. And so I just kind of wanted to get your thoughts on that if you don't mind.
Well, my thing that I'm always constantly saying is that a lot of us have heard the term reconciliation. And, I'm saying that actions and change behavior is required and that'll create reconciliation. And, we're really tired of lip service and it's time for actions and change. And that's what I'm all about. And education is key. Um, a lot of people, I mean, I'm not going to call you ignorant. Um, I'm very versed in this because I'm in the Indigenous world now, and I'm so
Right.
proud.
Mhm.
I'm like 360. I'm like a born again native. I'm so proud, and I'm right in everybody's face about it.
As you
But
should
I
be.
mean, yeah, but I mean, like just looking at the state of your government right now and how the racism is just so deplorable. It's just, I'm just beside myself. Um, that I'm not surprised that a lot of, uh, especially Americans, probably haven't heard of a lot of the Indigenous stories and what's happening.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It was, like I said, it was super powerful and it really kind of put a fire under my butt, if you will. Pardon the, um,
Hmm.
the metaphor, but it really kind of opened my eyes to, things that are going on that aren't being talked about.
Yeah.
And so I just thought it was super powerful. So I just wanted to kind of talk about that because it really made a mark on me. I mean, I had tears in my eyes after the presentation. So where do you see the future for Salmon and Bannock? Do you just want to keep it there, or do you want to expand even more outside the airport, or just kind of where do you see that
Right now,
restaurant in 5 years?
I'm in so much debt right now. I'm just trying to see the next paycheck to help cover some of the debt because it's really stressful. But that being said, I just launched the beginning of my retail line. And so now we have our Bannock mixes available for retail. And we have regular and gluten-free Bannock mixes. So you just add water and make them at home. And so we launched that a couple of months ago and it's going really well. And I just finished doing 5 days of holiday markets vending. And that's my first time kind of dipping into that world. So that has been interesting and busy. And now I'm getting into more and more retailers around, which is exciting.
Well, that's really neat. So I'd love for you to send a link for that so I can plug that in when I publish this episode because I will definitely be ordering.
Yes.
Well, that's great. So um, I also wanted to talk about kind of getting back into your indigenous roots, the New Hulk, and you were named Snitsmana. Is that correct?
Needs mana.
Nitsmana. And what does
Needs
that
mana.
mean to you?
Um, well, it was my biological grandmother's traditional name that was gifted to me. So that's really special. And It means protector of the sacred dance and lively.
Well, that's beautiful. I
Yeah.
absolutely love that. So have you been, since you've kind of reconnected with your roots, is there anything you'd like to share about your tribe that makes you, or I don't know if tribe's the right word, so I apologize. Um,
That's okay.
that makes you unique or that you're especially proud of?
I think I think the one thing that was really um there's a couple things that I found that was really interesting. So growing up in Vancouver, um n- there's no way I could have called City Hall and asked if they knew my mom. There's just no
Right.
way. My biological mom. And so I didn't know that I could have called. It was on my birth certificate that I was born in Bella Coola. And I didn't know that I could call the New Hulk Nation band office and say, "Hi, this is my name. Do you know my mother?" And that they did know her. Like
Mhm.
I didn't know any of that. I didn't know that that would have been possible. Like I think that's really crazy. And when I did go up, I was really amazed at a 3-day potlatch that I went to, and there's 500 people there, and I found out I was related to all of them.
Oh my.
So that's just like mind-boggling.
No,
And
absolutely.
but one thing is that I think that they know everything about the New Hulk Nation, about everything, being Indigenous, about all of it. I think they know everything, and I know nothing. That's kind of just my baseline of how I feel.
Hmm.
But then when I talk to a lot of them don't know anything either. Uh, like 100% of all Indigenous people have been personally affected by the residential schools. So when you kind of let that sink in and you understand the domino effect that it's caused on all of our communities, I think that really helps people understand the domino effect and how it's affected everybody and how everyone's been impacted. And so I was really ignorant to that. I didn't understand. And, you know, I, many of them are still learning everything as well. And, I'll find out that I'm related, but I'm like, how are we related? And they're like, I don't know. I have no idea. It's like, okay, well, uh, maybe we'll find out one day. It's-
No,
but a lot of the elders that have that knowledge have passed as well. So
yeah. Well, just know, well, first off, I've really enjoyed our conversation. I've learned so much. I think the biggest thing we can do as non-Indigenous people is just to spread knowledge, give support, and awareness of, it's probably one of the hardest things to do to be an Indigenous uh, person in society right now. It's super difficult, and I just commend you for what you've done for your community and spreading awareness. And I just can't thank you enough. And I will always be your biggest cheerleader. If you ever need me to do anything, spread your message on social media, I'll be here for you.
thank you so much. It's so kind.
You know, it's I just think we need a lot more of that in society in general, not even just for Indigenous people, but a lot of other, whether it's LGBTQ or whatever, just accept people for who they are. Everyone, has something to give. So
Exactly.
I appreciate it so much.
So that was my conversation with Inez Cook, an absolute gem in the culinary industry and an absolute gem as a person. If these conversations resonate with you, please consider buying me a cup of coffee. The link is in the description below. It will help me keep this podcast afloat and bring on more powerful guests like Inez. As always, God bless, and we'll talk soon.